Today, it's me, the Outlaw, jumping into the No Shave Man Cave to talk about some mental health and what it means to me, because it means a lot, and it's super important to keep your mentals on the right path.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the No Shave Man Cave. I'm Ellijare, and I am joined by the Outlaw, and he is going to be killing it today. Super psyched. What is going on, Justin?
Howdy, Tony. You still want us to do the hook first, or you want us to go into it? That's all right. Because I was about to
Okay.
go, and then I was like, wait a minute.
You want to start over?
Here, I'll just do the hook real quick, and
Okay.
you want to hit.
All right. Greetings, 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 and welcome again to the No Shave Man Cave. I'm Ellijare. J. Tilly isn't going to be here today, but like our charter was, when we got together, the focus of our show was going to be wrestling and mental wellness. And today we are joined by a friend of the show, fellow beardsman, and super pumped to have Justin here. And we're going to kind of walk the dog on what we think mental wellness, mental health, and all the things. And I'm super happy and excited to have you here in the cave, brother.
It's great to be here, man. And honestly, one of the things I've always appreciated about you guys was that you do this because it's really important. Like, I think you and I both know plenty of people that have been in certain places, and I will admit to having been in those places myself for various reasons. Especially as a teenager, I definitely suffered from some serious depression and even attempted suicide as a teenager. And I'm very frank with anybody about that. I don't feel that there should be any stigmas on mental health. I'm not afraid to talk about my mental health with anyone, because I feel like talking about it has saved my life, and I know talking with others has saved theirs. So it's something that I feel very strongly about in general terms. Um, and I think that discussion needs to be had, brother. Like, that's the biggest thing is we can't fix problems when we don't know they're problems. We can't exist in a world where we're not conversing and discussing what we want to shape our world to be. And that to me was one of the cornerstones of the depression that I personally suffered, was that I didn't know what I wanted the world to be. So, you know, right off the bat, I can say one of the main survival mechanisms I've always had for myself and for others is, let's talk about where you're trying to get to. Let's not just discuss what's bringing you down, what's holding you back. What are you trying to get through? What are you trying to get to? And having that conversation. And don't get me wrong, that it's not a wake up and shake it off or brush it off kind of thing. For some people, there's dysthymia or certain chemical imbalances or other physical problems at hand as well, that you can't just talk your way through and see a shining light on the other side. It's not always that cut and dry, and coming from a family that has dealt with stuff like that. My father is a psychologist as well. um, you know I've seen that there's medical depression, there's clinical depression, there's just mental depression. There's different layers of it, and for each person it's different. And like I said before the show, when you and I were talking, my philosophy is, it's you got to earn that token every day, and that goes for anybody in any type of recovery, anybody who's healing or mending from anything. If you're a cancer patient, you're earning it one day at a time because you're taking your meds or you're doing the treatments and you're trying to keep your mental attitude the right way. If you're an alcoholic, it's just every day that you don't take that drink, you're earning your token that day. You know, if you're depressed, it's every day you're waking up and you're still on the planet and you're getting through it and you're finding a way. You've earned that token, man.
Yeah, that's huge, and I really appreciate you sharing the some of the aspects of your wellness throughout your life. And I recently experienced a significant loss of um, Tiffany, my wife, for 31 years. So that wasn't just a normal run-of-the-mill depression. Um, it just, like, I had to hit the reboot on my entire mainframe. And to everyone and anyone who's going through any sort of anything, please look long range. And if you're in any kind of distress, please hit 988, and someone will hop on and be there to help. If you're on active duty, talk to someone in your command, your chaplain. Request some time with someone who you refer to as your mentor. If you're in the civilian world, health.com, there's plenty of apps and venues, and I totally commend everyone who is addressing their mental wellness. I have my therapy appointment tomorrow, and I really look forward to it because I take notes throughout in between appointments, so I can sort of, I woke up today and I thought, you know what, everything's going to be all right. And then the next day, or, down the road, whatever, and then I look, oh, the moon was this. And sometimes the phase of the moon affects people differently. Oh, men have more water in their body. And I don't know, but
Gravity's a bitch.
Yeah. And today is my 51st birthday, and it is a series of firsts in my life. And today is the first birthday without Tiffany, and that brings a whole other different level. But I'm living the life that I know Tiffany would want me to live. And I got up, I took the dogs for a walk, I worked out, which is a new norm for me. And, just like what you were talking about with, earning your token, and you've got, buddies and cohorts that we've had to sort of coach. And it isn't just a, hey buddy, how you doing? You pop him in the arm, and that was his button. Boop, he's good to go. It is a lot more than that. And reading people's body language and knowing, and a lot of times it's just, and the way JT and we were started working together, and a couple days of working together, we realized, oh, dang, old boy's wearing a wrestling t-shirt. So am I. And then we get talking, and Outlaw, I appreciate that you're, open about your mental wellness and mental health. And I'm extremely open about it because it keeps me driving, and it makes me feel good for myself being able to share it. And, it's okay to not be okay. And it's one of those things that every day you're developing as a human. And, Outlaw was talking about, patients taking their meds, and folks that are in a, whatever step of that program. And so proud to be doing this show on this platform with the Outlaw and El Editors in the background. You won't be able to hear him. He'll be yelling in our ears if we get off track, but I totally appreciate it. And JT taking care of business today. His oldest is getting ready to graduate high school, head off to become a CNA and all the things, and such a bright future. But I'm sure there's all kinds of anxiety, and now he's going to be going through, oh, she's going to go to school or not go to school, or she's going to, do whatever. And so excited to watch and, support him from afar. I'm not a girl dad, unfortunately.
I am. It's a whole thing.
I've got two boys. I'm super proud of them. I got an Army dog, Coden. How you doing, buddy? And then Rylan, who's a junior at UNF. So super, super cool to be talking today about, forever remembering the 22 suicides that unfortunately occur on the veterans side of things. And we're working on getting the details on the other suicide attempts and unfortunate successes, but which wouldn't really be a success. But I think, being here today, super super pumped. And what are some of your techniques, and are there periods of the year that it affects you more, and do you know necessarily why it affects you more?
Well, for me, it's funny because I fall into a seasonal depression thing a little bit, but it's not necessarily because of the seasons. My particular industry, my shoot job is being a TV producer in unscripted reality TV, and not like the Jersey Shore kind of stuff. I do like the Discovery Channel kind of stuff and cooking shows. Like, if loggers are throwing stuff down a mountain, I might be there, or stuff like that. Because I'd say I'm in reality TV, and people are like, "Oh, how'd you do on The Bachelor?" And then, like, I don't do those guys. I do.
I did not get a
home
rose.
build shows and car building shows and loggers and stuff
Awesome
like that.
shows,
But
yeah.
I've worked with some famous people and stuff too, which is a big mental health component that I've dealt with, because people think your life gets good when you get famous, but that's not necessarily the truth.
Yeah.
Um, but for me, like, there's this off season, and honestly, right now, work is very slow in my industry as a whole. Like, I know. I do another podcast called Grage Against the Machine, which is all about working class Hollywood. And we've had a few pretty big actors on there, and they've been out of work and they're depressed. And work life in my business and a lot of entertainment is very difficult, because your value and your worth is always being judged by whatever you did last and most recently.
Wow.
So for me, typically between Thanksgiving and Easter, there's very, very little work every year. And, Jay Tilly and I have talked about it quite a bit, of those kind of feelings of inadequacy that you have to fight, and how do you fight them, and how do you know in your heart that there's something out there for you, but man, it's just not coming. And it feels like a personal attack on who you are as a person. But so for me, one of the first coping mechanisms is have the conversation. Like me and Jay Tilly, literally, we have a thread going where we're talking about how our personal work lives make us feel, mentally and emotionally. And if I wasn't having that conversation with him and a couple other people, I would be in a much darker place. Just last week, I didn't get a gig that I really, really wanted, and I was beat down. It hurt bad. I felt like, at this age, my career should be in a certain place, and I just can't seem to get over this hump that I'm currently experiencing. But the first thing I did was I was a little quiet for a while. I was reserved, and I realized, shit, I'm going to that place. That's not the thing, brother. That's not going to help me. That's not going to help the people that I care about. Yes, I rightfully am upset that my situation is not what I want it to be. Okay. First question, like I was saying before, is what do I want it to be? Just acknowledge that. Even if it's a pipe dream, even if it's too much, even if it's too heady, acknowledge what it is that I'm trying to get to that is making me feel like I'm getting my butt kicked by not getting to it. If I don't know what that is, if I don't see what that target is, I don't know what I'm dodging. I don't know what I'm trying to avoid or what's kicking my butt so much. So I figured that out, and it was like, okay, now are there any positive steps or resources available to me that can help that move forward even this much? And that's where the conversations come in. Like, I talked to Jay Tilly a little bit, and just talking to him and just saying some things myself helped me figure out part of it. And then a couple of little suggestions from him, a couple of little things from my mom, who has Alzheimer's, but she can certainly pull a rabbit out of a hat from an old idea of helping other people out, because she was a social worker her whole life. And talking to my dad a little bit, who was a psychologist, where he helps me understand my feelings a little bit. And it wasn't like a therapy session. It was just like, hey, Pops, what's going on? Like, I wasn't even telling him where I was at, but, he's got the wisdom. And if you have those resources, and don't get me wrong, I know a lot of people don't, But if you have those resources, avail yourself to them, because I have found in my darkest times that is the easiest, simplest, most fulfilling, and quickest fix is A, getting it out, B, getting some love and some sympathy from somewhere, because everybody wants a little bit of that, even if it's selfish. Sometimes you just need it. And C, figuring out if there's anything positive you can do, because when you get that moment of self-fulfillment of you actually helped yourself a little bit, even if somebody else gave you the idea, you made the phone call.
That's awesome. That's so empowering. That's awesome.
Yeah. Or you're just not eating enough that day because you're bummed out, you're in your feels or whatever, but you got up and you made a sandwich. Sometimes just doing that is what is the thing, brother.
That's like a huge victory in some days, you know.
Do the little thing, take the little step, find the thing, and then the final key part of it for me, and when I do media training for celebrities and whatnot, and when I worked at the NFL, I did a lot of media training with my team there, and I've done it for several wrestlers and several actors and musicians and whatnot. Acknowledge the little steps that you've made yourself. You have to reward yourself. You have to tell yourself, I did that, even if it seems minuscule, because you did. You still took that step. You still made that phone call. Even if somebody else is the one that's giving you the bigger reward or the paycheck or the fame or the whatever the heck it is, or the validation or the love, or somebody else is giving you the hug, you took the step forward. You were open to receiving that hug. You were the one who made the sandwich. You were the one that made the phone call. You have to give yourself that. You got to give yourself something, because that's the path forward and not back.
Yeah, reward yourself, like you said, like the little victories. And I am terrible at that. I just look at,
it's hard.
All of the mountain of things that I have to get taken care of in my life. And I'm just like, man, I'm doing this by myself now. I'm no longer, and I referred to Tiffany as Batman, and I was always Robin. I was in the behind the scenes making funny jokes and, coming up with things to put in Batman's belt. And, that's, you come up with a little victory or a little win, you recognize it. You're like, oh shit, got a little wind in my sails. Next thing you know, a little more wind. And like I said, I really look forward to my therapy sessions. And in some cultures, it's just not acceptable. Some people I know, they're like, I'm too strong for that. I'm like, yo, I thought I was too until I wasn't. And, Tiffany was a licensed, just received her license to become a therapist and start doing the things. And I would bounce things off of her. And she's like, well, are you being honest with yourself? Boom. All right.
There it is.
Let me go reflect. I'll be back. And I'd go do some woodwork, or I'd go do, whatever. And if you are being true to yourself, and, you made a great point, Outlaw, where you're, it seems like something tiny. Oh, I made a sandwich. Oh, it's nothing. It's not. Yeah, but what did you do yesterday? Well, I laid not in my bed. I was under my bed. Okay, so then you went to bed on your bed. Yes. And then you got up and then you made a sandwich. Well, there's 2 victories right there.
There you go.
And, you just start chipping away at it. And next thing you know, you're up and walking, you're showering daily, or whatever your hygiene routine is. And, things are good. When you talk about different resources, and sometimes they're not available, sometimes they are, if you're not, you don't have access to it, you come from a big family, share what you're comfortable with. Because if you're not in a comfortable place while you're sharing, then, you're sort of undoing any kind of success. If you have buddies that you feel like you can confide in, I feel like I can confide in my brother and sister. My sister has had quite the run, and, she, helps me kind of sound off, and she's like, okay, well, let's unpack that. And I'm like, I don't want to. Well, you have to in order to, get over the hump. So, I'm a proud parent, and I worry about my children. I'm a people person, and people that are peoples or people persons,
Peoples.
and 28 years in the Marine Corps, I was always doing something for somebody. Wasn't really necessarily concerned about myself. Well, I'm a people, and it gets to a point where you have to sort of take a step back and please yourself. And, again, we go back to an awesome comment that the Outlaw made where I was able to get up, I was able to shower, I was able to get something to eat, get outside, get some sun. And today was the 5th day in a row I've been able to get up and get myself to work out and start working on getting in shape. And I feel fantastic. Sore as all get up. The pain you feel like when you sit down and the pressure against your hamstrings, I'm dealing with that right now. But that's a good pain, and that's just telling me, okay, that's a freaking cool victory. And tomorrow when I talk to my therapist, I'm gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna reward myself. And I got this little bell that I got tattooed on so I can sort of ring the bell and be a little bit proud of myself. And I'm doing it, and it's one day at a time. It's a game plan. It's like a football, basketball. You've got plays, you've got to run them. And if it's not working, you got to change it up. And eventually I'm going to get in the end zone. And what that end zone looks like, I'm not sure yet. It's still evolving. And that's kind of like what you were talking about, like, where do you want to get? And, manifesting something that's, it's super cool, man.
Well, and there's a certain power to the thought process, and it's just like you getting up and working out. You have to exercise the thought process too. Mental strength requires practice to a certain extent, and it's different for everybody. I'm not the person to give platitudes. I'm just not that guy. I'm the guy that keeps it real, even with people in the darkest times. And it's scary too, because when you tell somebody who's already in a dark place, like the real thing, instead of just the platitude of the, hey, buck up, or you're going to make it through, or there's something positive waiting for you. Like, I'm just not that guy. And that's not to say that there isn't something positive waiting for you. It's that I'm not going to blow sunshine up anybody's butt. That's not my jam. But there are certain things that keep me going that I tell other people. Like my mentor, Charles Mask Lewis, he was the founder of Tap Out. He created Tap Out. And I worked with him for a long time. He was the most inspirational person in my life. He is my guardian angel that's sitting on my shoulder. He passed away in a tragic car accident. But the things I learned from that guy in maybe a 2 or 3 year period will always stay with me. And he used to say, he doesn't have to be the one to reach the millions. He only has to touch the one that can touch the millions.
Wow.
And I think about that every day, because it brings you to the level where you understand your value and your own worth. That's what Charles gave to me. So it's like, okay, man, I don't have to make a TV show that everybody sees and it's got this big, huge message. But man, if I'm the guy that helps find that one person that has that message, if I'm the guy that can go out and I can, I've seen it happen with professional wrestlers at conventions. Some fan that just comes up to pay $40 and shake their hand or get a picture says something that inspires that person, and then they go on TV that night in a different place, and then that does literally hit millions of people. Like one little tiny fan interaction, and I'm using wrestling because we dive into that world too, but
makes sense.
I literally saw it happen a couple weeks ago, and I've seen those kind of moments save somebody's life. It's like you have to think on the scale that is relative to where you're at, and man, it can be that simple. It can be a butterfly effect. You can just touch one person, and all of a sudden that can go everywhere. But I want to say this too to the first responders, especially that I've worked with, and I know that you guys have dealt a lot with the military folks, but I've taken doors and ridden side by side with a lot of law enforcement agencies in general in my work in reality TV, to the point where I was deputized in Texas and was wearing a bulletproof vest to work every day and taking doors and the whole nine. So I've seen the darkness that is out there in those people's worlds. And the biggest mental health problem I see, especially in law enforcement, is the fear of talking to each other. Because you know for a fact, as a law enforcement officer, every other person in blue out there has probably seen some gruesomeness, something awful, some of the true evil that is in the world. And you feel guilty trying to express your dismay at having to deal with that every day with somebody else who has to deal with it every day. And so I find a lot of the brothers in blue don't speak to each other about it. They don't feel okay doing it. I just want to send you guys all a message. Stop that shit. Talk to each other. Pretty please. The officers I know that have started doing that are so much better, period. They're better at their jobs. They're better with their families. They're better in life because they're starting to talk to each other about it. It's the biggest message I can send out there. I've seen it firsthand. I've been a party to it. I've gone through some doors where what was on the other side of that door, the worst things I could have ever possibly imagined have been on the other side of some of those doors in Dallas, Texas. Just the worst things that I will not relate to anyone at this point in time.
Yeah.
Not because I'm afraid to discuss it, but because you don't need it. Trust me, you don't need these images in your life. You don't need these thoughts. You don't want them. And neither do those poor officers that went through those doors. And I just want those officers to think about it, be able to share with each other, any of the first responders, the military folks out there. Man, we know what you guys have done.
Yeah.
We know that you guys have been through it. Or maybe we don't. But please, 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 like, if you don't talk about it, if you don't find a way to express how you're feeling and thinking and what that has done to you and your own trauma, it's really hard to find a good place and a good way to move forward because you're too busy blocking things as opposed to accepting them and accepting the goodness in life, because you get so accustomed to blocking the badness from life that even when the goodness is there and coming at you and coming in, it's hard to let it in.
Yeah.
Because your job emotionally and mentally is to block shit. Like,
it's so, like a sponge, and you're doing dishes and you set it out and it's soaking wet, and it can't take any more water. It can't take any more, whatever. I love what you're saying though. Like our brothers in blue, our first responders, I'm a devil dog at heart. I'm sure the Air Force Bubbas have dealt with stressful situations at, 10,000 feet, making a, real-time decision that's going to affect other people's lives, and it's going to affect their lives long term. So, totally commend everybody that they're making those real-time decisions with the best education and, muscle memory that they have and everything that they're going through. And, we can't, we definitely can't say, oh yeah, we've walked your shoes or, walked in your shoes or done the things. But, great advice from the Outlaw, address the elephant in the room. And we used to make these kits at work where I used to work, and we'd get them a backpack, and we'd, give them a bunch of things, their tools that they would need, and one of the things we gave them was a notebook, and there was an elephant on the notebook. And the whole idea was you've got to address the elephant in the room. And sometimes the elephant is you can or cannot time and space accomplish something. Or sometimes it's the elephant in the room could be you. And, I've put myself in some situations where I wasn't as, self-aware as I probably should have. And, it cost me possibly some friendships down the road or, whatever. But at the end of the day, I came back and said, you know what? I was wrong here. I was wrong there. What am I going to do moving forward? I'm not going to beat myself up, but I'm never going to make that same mistake twice. Well, you can never say never. I will not make that mistake twice. So, So, the whole gist of May, spring flowers and, the seasons are changing. Mental health awareness, it shouldn't be just a monthly thing. It should be a daily, annual, constantly addressing, where you're at in life. And, here in the No Shave Man Cave, we talk about bourbon, barbecue, and body slams. And we take time to talk about our bodies, our mental wellness, and having a friend of the show like the Outlaw is a huge, massive, just an amazing resource. And to, hear some of the reflections that you've had is insurmountable. And I can't thank you enough as we get ready to wrap the show up. And, and as we, get ready to wrap up, I'd offer the platform to the Outlaw. Give him a shout out. Tell him what you want to tell him. What projects are you working on? What do you got coming up next? Where can we find you on your socials? I love that show that you were talking about. I'm getting ready to subscribe to it. Holler at us.
It's Justin Harvey 75 on all the social medias. You can find me all over the place. I have another podcast called Rage Against the Machine. It's the unscripted journey of working class Hollywood. We've done about 15 or 16 episodes now with my co-host Lisa Katara, who's an actress and stunt woman that I grew up with in Cleveland. It's really fun show, and we're talking to everybody. We're talking to stunt people, we're talking to actors, we're talking to reality folks, we're talking to trying to cover a lot of different bases. But it really is like, hey, 1% of Hollywood is the George Clooney's and the Brad Pitts and the Julia Roberts. Like, people don't realize that I am in Hollywood. I have made TV shows that have been nominated for Emmys. I have been seen by millions of people on different TV shows, but you don't know who the heck I am, and you don't necessarily need to, but we have stories, and they're what keep the entertainment industry going. So that's what that podcast is about that I'm doing. I also used to do one called Mass Mats and Mayhem, which was a Lucha Underground and wrestling focused podcast that I did for 8 or 9 years, which we come back for a special every now and then on the Lucha Central podcast.
Love me some Lucha Underground, brother.
It was the best, man. And I have a few buddies, and we used to go to the shows all the time, except for our one co-host who is in Falmouth, England. We met him online, but he's the best. Kid named Meatloaf. Not Meatloaf, Meatloaf. Amazing guy.
Not a typo.
Not a typo. But, and TV project, the last couple things I had come out, there's one called Best Bite Wins that's on the Roku channel app. And then Fresh Fried and Crispy is another one that I did. That was a cooking show that's on Netflix that anybody can see anytime. And then a lot of Food Paradise and American Hot Rod and Tap Out, the TV show, and all those things. Most of which can be found on apps somewhere. You hit my IMDb, you'll see some of the shows I've worked on. And to my mentor, Charles Lewis, the guy I was talking about, who was a Marine, and he was a San Bernardino County Police sheriff. Like, he's an inspiring individual, and he always said, just simply believe. And that was how he got through one day to the next day. And he had his demons, man. They were real. He had real demons just like all of us. And he was taken too soon, but that was a tragic accident. And the simply believe thing, though, this necklace says believe. The only ink I have says believe. You have to. You just find a way and you believe. So I invite everyone to just take that reflective moment, figure out what it is. And believe means a lot of things, man. It just means that you have put your heart and your trust in something. What is it that you believe in? Go with it. Find it and go with it, man.
Hell yeah.
It can be anything.
Man, that is awesome. Wow. Believe. I think I have some space, if you'll allow me to get that tattooed on me. I definitely want to carry that message with me and share that message forward. And I encourage everyone who's checking us out here on this podcast, whether you subscribe to it or you just happen to land on it because of our beautiful faces or our beards. It could be our beards. And, take time, check in with yourself, see how you are doing for you. If you're a people person, you're out there pleasing people, FYI, you're a people and you need to please yourself. So to our brothers and sisters at arms, thank you so much for what you do for this great country. To our first responders, I can't tell you enough how much I appreciate what you do. And, you know, just like Justin said, you know, sometimes you just got to share. You got to, you know, is it weird that I feel this way? I've got this nervous tick. I started doing these things. Oh, no, I started, you know, sniffing mint, or my dog has anxiety. So I have lavender plugins around my house. She quit peeing and pooping all over the house. Simply that one little thing. So something that little may come in handy. So thank you to all of the therapists and those who are doing big things and great things for mental health and mental wellness. And on behalf of Jay Tilley, Ellijare, and the Outlaw, thank you so much for joining us here today, Outlaw. To our brothers and sisters at arms, thank you so much for what you do to this great country, for this great country. Hurry up, get your ass back home as soon as possible. To our first responders, I can't even imagine what you go through on a daily basis. Thank you so much for putting yourselves in harm's way. You know, the Outlaw had a great tidbit of advice. Just open up and share. If you are ever in a position that you feel like you can do that, you know, please do. And, you know, on behalf of Jay Tilley and I, thanks for checking us out here at the No Shave Man Cave. Some gave all, and all gave some. And until next time, we'll see you very soon. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and we'll see you on the floor.